before you write the content. And so I did, and and I was the first speaker. So whenever you're the first speaker,
Wow.
it's almost a great thing, but it's also like, I'm like, okay, great, awesome, I'm the first speaker. I got there. I didn't have any training. So this particular one didn't provide any real training. And so I go there and I'm an hour early, and I get on stage, and the bright lights, if you've ever seen bright lights before, it's like you're being interrogated. And it was like, I completely forgot my talk. Absolutely, it was gone. It wasn't in my head anymore. And I had practiced for 6 weeks, because I had 6 weeks to do it. So to me, I practiced to the point that I can recite it backwards. And I don't mean the words backwards, but I can do the whole thing backwards. And I knew that talk in my bones. And I got there, and in my head exploded, and I forgot it. I went to the change room, and I stared at a light bulb, because those like makeup lights,
Yeah.
makeup mirror lights. And I just stared into the light, because here's what I learned. I wish I had taught you this before, but that I tried to memorize my talk from my head, and it wasn't happening, because that's where your fears and your self-sabotaging behaviors are, and thoughts and everything. And you're trying to recite something from that space of negativity. It's impossible. So I stared into this light bulb. I practiced it, and I was getting like the end of the TEDx was the beginning, and the middle was the end, and it was a disaster. I thought, well, I don't know what to do. So I went out, I got mic'd up, and I said to the lady, the organizer, I said, I can't do this. I am not going. And I was adamant. She said, oh, you're going. I'm like, no, I'm not. There's no way in hell no way. And I had like 30 seconds. And prior to all of this, I was a very black and white person. There was no way I was like praying to the universe, because I didn't believe in any of that. And I was scared to death. So I had memorized the first 2 lines. I thought, if I can just memorize the first 2 lines from my head, maybe it'll come out. And I had this moment of and now I understand what people say when they have that moment, that God moment or whatever. And I said to the universe, I prayed, and I looked up at the sky or whatever, and I said, oh my God, you know I know this. You know I know this. Please pull it out of me, because I'm going to look like an idiot up there. And I did the first 2 lines, and then if you watch the TEDx, you can see that there's a pause. And that was my pause from my head to my body. And the rest just came out of nowhere. I don't know where it came from, to be honest with you. And I did my whole talk, and it was the scariest experience. And I don't think I told you this, Laura. It did make me nervous for about 6 months or a year afterwards, when I went speaking when I went to speak, because I'm like, what if that happens again?
Mm-hmm.
I really had to work through that, because I didn't want to ever be in that position again, which is ultimately scary. So, but what it taught me was many different things. One, the practicals, that you got to practice your talk, and you got to know it inside and out and backwards. And you need to be comfortable that it's not going to be in your head, and that you might not memorize it, but you need to be okay that if you flub it up, no one's going to know. And then it's in your body, right? And to trust the universe, and to trust yourself that you're going to be good no matter what happens. Even if you have to say to the audience, and I've seen so many TEDx talks where the speaker goes, I've just completely forgotten what I was going to say. So I actually had a person in front of me with my notes, like sitting in the audience, that if I forgot, they were going to help me out. So, when you look up on stage and you see speakers and you go, oh my God, they're so amazing, I'll never be that speaker. I can promise you that they have a lot of stuff that they've had to work through as well. And just to know that they are just as human as you.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I had another question for you about performance anxiety, and you've answered a lot of it just in that awesome story. And so maybe, at the TEDx point, you were not a beginner. So what if I'm a total beginner, and the anxiety is so visceral, so palpable? Like, what other tools and tricks have you heard of? Do you like, or that you could offer a beginner about just the anxiety itself?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. One of the things that I do when I get out on stage is I ground myself. I put my feet, firmly in place where I want them to be, and I take a breath. We often think that that's like 10 minutes. And
yeah.
right, people are staring at us,
Yeah.
but it's not. It's 3 seconds, and the audience really appreciates that. In fact, they look at you and they're getting connected to you. So it's like if you've ever been on a blind date or something along those lines, or on a first date or whatever. You have that. You just look at the person and you make a connection. That's actually what's happening. A lot of speakers, some come out on stage and start talking as they're walking, which, then that's a little bit confusing. But you got to get grounded. And whatever it is that you need to do to get grounded. So maybe you need to do jumping jacks before you, I do that a lot, do jumping jacks or something to get your energy pumped up, to get the breathing going, because you need air to your brain. And to me, a really great way to do that is like jog on the spot, or put on one of your songs that really motivate and inspire you. That's another way. I always have, if you're allowed to, like TEDx, you're not allowed to have notes or a music stand, but have a music stand. I take my music stand wherever I go, and I'm okay with that. Have cue cards if that's something that you feel that is necessary. I find cue cards not helpful for me only if I get into this place of I have to shuffle them, and if, let's say, 10 minutes into my talk, if I haven't shuffled them, then I'm like, where the hell am I? So
yes,
that might work for you. But ultimately, you've got to get grounded, and you have to be okay that you are going to make a mistake, and it's not going to be perfect. I used to memorize my talks word for word, and do you know how much work that is to memorize an hour-long talk word for word?
Yeah.
And then if one word was out of place, I'd lose my mind. So it's about knowing your talk enough that you feel comfortable sharing it, and then learning to have fun with it. That if you do forget, try to have fun with the audience and look at someone in the audience. They love the interaction, and go, if you're looking at someone in the front, you go, you know what? Do you remember my lines? Because I just completely forgot what I was going to say. And they're like, they look at you and they're like, right? They're like, you put them on the spot. And now the highlight is a little bit on them. So you have a few moments to remember, but you go, you know what? I'm just going to go check my notes, because I don't know what the heck I'm going to say. And I'm a rambler, and we could be here for 3 days. You make it fun, and you make it light, and you play with the audience.
Yeah.
And that does take practice, right? But it's really knowing that what you have to say is going to make a difference in someone's life. And I think that that's a lot. It's a confidence piece that people forget, that they don't believe that they can make a difference. They don't believe that what they have to say is valuable. And that shows through when you're up there speaking, and I know this because when I started speaking, I would think in my head, they're not listening to me. Oh my God, they don't like me. What I'm saying is not valuable. And then I would start to go inward, and then it would just be a disaster. Mm-hmm. So you got to go out there knowing and believing that you can make a difference. And break up your content into sections. So like I've taught you, is there's let's say 5 sections to a talk, and memorize each section, or remember or learn whatever each section, and then memorize them backwards, or learn recite them backwards when you're practicing, so that if you get the section in a different order, it's okay, but at least you know the section. And break it down even further into what I do is like just 3 learning points. And when you're saying to the audience, well, you're going to learn these 3 things today. You're going to learn A, you're going to learn B, and you're going to learn C. It's also a good mental note for you, so that you stay on track with your A, your B, and your C. And have it filled with story, because we remember story better than we remember fact, for both you as a speaker and the audience. So just make sure every point that you've got is backed up with a story. Just a quick example of when you know your stories and you go through the process of uncovering your soul story moments. I did a live event a couple of weeks ago, and one guy stood up and didn't stand up, pardon me. He said, but what you're teaching us doesn't apply to me. I said, oh, okay. Why is that? Well, because my audience is different. My audience is such and such. It was actually, my audience is older group of people and whatever. So I said, you know what? His name is Fritz. I said, stand up, Fritz. And I wasn't trying to, scare him or anything, but this is what I make people do, because the moment they stand up, they are an expert, right? Mm-hmm. Stood up. And I said, so tell me, talk to me about what do you mean by that? So it was on the spot coaching. And he told me that, I'm 60 years old and blah, 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 people in new careers and second careers or third careers, and this is what I teach. What you're teaching me is invaluable. And I said, you know what, Fritz, what's really interesting? And I remembered a story that for 25 years, my dad, after 60 to 85, because he got the whole golden handshake, he was really stuck, didn't know what to do. And for 25 years, he literally sat at the kitchen table drinking every day. My dad was an alcoholic. 25 years. And it's one of the reasons why I am so motivated to do what I do and to not waste any time, because he wasted 25 years and how it affected my mom and all sorts of stuff. So it brought up a story that I've completely forgot about. And it became a beautiful teaching moment that I was choked up, because that's what your story does, right? Here I am sharing another vulnerable story with an audience of 60 people. And he looked at me and he said, something along the lines of, but this doesn't affect you. And I said, you know what? That story told is the reason why I'm standing here today. So thank you for allowing me to remember that. So what I did was I ended up turning the situation around with a story that I just happened to pull out of basically in my ass, right?
Yes.
And, but it worked, and it was like, oh my God, I forgot about that story. So having a basket full of stories that you can pull out if you forget your content is beautiful, and it works. And he said, you know what? Thank you so much for that story, because you just made all the difference for me like, now I get it.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's it. That really does speak to the power of story. Oh my gosh, for sure. I love that. So, okay. So I have, maybe one or two more questions for you, but so if you had to tell us what you love the most about speaking in the big picture for you personally, what would it be?
You see,
Spoke to it a little bit already. I love the moment where you said, when you believe you can change somebody's life. I mean, that's so powerful, but makes me kind of wonder what it is that you get up every morning and you're like, yes, I'm going to go do that again.
Yeah. Well, I just did the promotional video for my 3-day live event. I went to Tampa, shot this promotional video, and I'm like, okay, this is a story that I forgot. And so there's two reasons why I love to speak. And here's it's not even an egotistical reason, but this is the reason, is that when I was a kid, I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be famous. I wanted to, and I didn't even know back then about the money, because I don't know what, I was too young, but I wanted to be famous. And I wanted to be on TV, and I wanted to be glamorous, and I wanted to, oh my gosh, I just wanted the whole world to know who I was. And my parents said to me, because I wanted to go to university for theater, and they said to me, God bless them, but you're not going to be successful. It's not going to work. You're not going to make basically you're not going to make any money, which, hello, it may make what, $30-50 million a picture now. And it's just not going to work. You need to go do something practical and all of that kind of stuff. And in grade 5, so whatever, what are you, 10 years old, I tried out for the school play for Snow White. And I thought I had it. I was like, that's my part. That's me. And this girl who was a friend of mine, she got the part of Snow White. I was absolutely devastated, angry. And then of course I went into judgment of self, but then I actually went into judgment of her, of like, well, she's not going to be better than me. She's not going to be able to do it. And I was like, snarly about the whole thing. But it was also in that moment that I went, you know what? Listening to my parents, I didn't get the part. And I had never tried out for any other parts. That was it. And I realized that I was, now I realize that the reason to be an actress was I was going after the money and the success of it, like the fame of it. I wanted just to be famous. And so when I realized that speaking was it, like when I built my first business, it was speaking to real estate offices, which is not by any means sexy or famous, makes you famous. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it's that it's feeding a bucket list, I guess. It's feeding a passion of mine that I really want to be an actress. And I would love to be in that space. be the Sophia Loren, that kind of thing. And when I started